Your body is on fire right now. Not dramatically, quietly. A low, persistent burn running through your joints, your gut, your blood vessels that most people never connect to a single cause. Doctors call it chronic low-grade inflammation, and it sits underneath nearly every major modern disease: heart disease, type 2 diabetes, arthritis, cognitive decline. The pharmaceutical industry spends billions every year trying to suppress it. But there is a different category of answer, one that has been sitting in gardens, in hedgerows, and in kitchen windowsills for thousands of years. Plants, specific ones, with documented peer-reviewed mechanisms that researchers are only now fully mapping. Not teas for relaxation, not supplements in a capsule, living plants that you can grow yourself, process yourself, and use every single day. 15 of them, each one targeting inflammation through a different biological pathway. Some block the body's inflammatory alarm signal at the source. Others interrupt the chemical messengers that keep it spreading. A few work on the nervous system, because chronic stress and chronic inflammation are the same fire, feeding each other. One of them has been tested head-to-head against a prescription anti-inflammatory in a clinical trial and held its ground. One has a Cochrane systematic review examining its effect on migraine frequency. Most people have never heard of it. And one, the one most people walk past without thinking twice, contains a compound now being studied for the same receptor target as certain Alzheimer's medications. 15 plants, real mechanisms, and every single one of them can be growing 10 feet from your back door. Turmeric is the plant that made researchers stop and look twice. Its active compound, curcumin, goes after the body's main inflammatory switch, a signaling protein called NF-κB. Think of NF-κB as the alarm system that keeps triggering even after the threat is gone. Curcumin reaches in and resets it. Studies published in peer-reviewed rheumatology journals suggest curcumin performs comparably to diclofenac, a standard prescription anti-inflammatory for certain types of joint pain and with fewer reported gastrointestinal side effects. Turmeric needs warmth and consistent moisture to thrive. Grow it in containers so you can move it indoors before temperatures drop in autumn. It will not survive frost unprotected. One practical note: curcumin is notoriously hard to absorb on its own. Pairing it with black pepper, which contains a compound called piperine, increases absorption by a documented factor of around 20, not a folk claim. That is a published pharmacokinetic finding. Here is what I do every morning. I take a knuckle-sized piece of fresh root. I grate it directly into a small ceramic bowl. Add a pinch of black pepper, a tablespoon of raw honey, and enough warm water to dissolve it into a loose paste. That paste goes into a cup of warm oat milk or water. I drink it before anything else reaches my system. Ginger and turmeric are botanical cousins, and they work in complementary ways on the same fire. Where curcumin targets that alarm system switch, ginger's active compounds, gingerols and showgales, go after a different set of inflammatory messengers, specifically the COX and LOX pathways. These are the same pathways that most over-the-counter pain relievers target. Ginger does it without the pharmaceutical load. Evidence also indicates that ginger meaningfully reduces inflammatory markers in people with osteoarthritis. The effect is modest. This is not a dramatic cure, but over months of consistent use, it accumulates. That is exactly how daily herbs work, steadily. Ginger grows beautifully as a container plant in temperate climates. Keep it in a sheltered, sunny spot through summer and move it inside well before the first frost. Fresh ginger tea is the simplest protocol. Take a thumb-sized piece of root and slice it thin. Add the slices to a small pot with 2 cups of cold water. Bring it slowly to a low simmer, not a rolling boil. A hard boil degrades the active compounds. After 10 minutes, strain into a ceramic cup. I add 1/4 of a lemon, squeeze directly in, and a raw honey drizzle. Rosemary is the plant most people walk past without thinking twice. It smells like a kitchen. It looks like a hedge, but its chemistry is genuinely interesting. Rosmarinic acid, the compound that gives rosemary its distinctive scent, shows meaningful antioxidant activity. More specifically, it appears to interfere with the same NF-κB pathway that curcumin targets, and also suppresses certain pro-inflammatory cytokines. Think of cytokines as the messages inflammation sends to recruit more inflammation. Rosemary interrupts that message chain. Preliminary observations from neurological research also suggest regular rosemary use is associated with improved recall and reduced cognitive decline markers in older adults. The mechanisms being explored involve acetylcholinesterase, the same enzyme that Alzheimer's medications target. It is early data, but it is not trivial. Rosemary is one of the easiest plants on this list to establish. It tolerates wet winters if it has excellent drainage. The soil cannot sit wet. Put it in grit-amended mix, give it a south-facing exposure, and it will outlive you. The simplest daily use: steep one fresh sprig, about 6 inches, in hot water for 7 minutes. That produces a mild, pleasant infusion with measurable rosmarinic acid content. For culinary use, I strip fresh needles into olive oil and let it infuse for 2 weeks in a cool, dark place. The oil becomes deeply aromatic and carries the fat-soluble compounds far more effectively than a water infusion. Tulsi is the one that tends to surprise people. You expect it to be another culinary herb, but it has a more unusual biochemical profile than most of what is on this list. Its primary compounds, eugenol, ursolic acid, and rosmarinic acid, work through multiple mechanisms simultaneously. It is one of the few plants that shows evidence of activity on cortisol regulation, which matters because chronically elevated cortisol is itself a driver of systemic inflammation. When the stress response doesn't switch off properly, inflammation follows it. In Ayurvedic tradition, Tulsi has been used for thousands of years as an adaptogen, a substance that helps the body regulate its response to stress. Evidence from small clinical trials is beginning to support that framing. Studies suggest measurable reductions in perceived stress and some inflammatory biomarkers after regular Tulsi use. Grow Tulsi as an annual in temperate climates. Start it indoors in late spring and move it outside once nights stay above 10 degrees Celsius. It grows fast enough to give you a full season of material before the cold returns. Fresh Tulsi tea is different from dried. I pick 8 to 10 mature leaves, bruise them lightly between my fingers to release the oils, then steep in water that is hot but not quite boiling, around 85 degrees. The flavor is complex, slightly clove-like, floral, faintly peppery. It is not sweet. Some people need time with it. I have grown to prefer it above most things I drink in a day. Lavender's mechanism is quieter than turmeric's. It works at a different level, the nervous system. Linalool, lavender's primary active compound, interacts with GABA receptors, the same receptors that benzodiazepine medications target. The effect is smaller, obviously, but the principle matters. Lavender is not just aromatic. It is pharmacologically active at a specific receptor type that governs anxiety and calm. Reduced chronic stress directly reduces inflammatory load. The connection between unresolved anxiety and elevated inflammatory markers, particularly IL-6 and CRP, is well established in the literature. Lavender works on that entry point. Lavender grows exceptionally well in any climate with reasonable sun, provided you give it the drainage it demands. Sandy, gritty soil. Once established, it is nearly indestructible. I do not recommend drinking lavender tea every day. The flavor is dominant and the compounds concentrated. 2 to 3 times a week is what I use. The more practical daily use is a linen sachet, dried flowers sewn into a small cloth bag kept under your pillow. Preliminary observations from olfactory research suggest inhaled linalool may influence perceived stress and relaxation. It is a gentler mechanism than oral preparations, but for daily background use, it is the most accessible. Lemon balm is one of the mint family's most underrated members. It spreads aggressively, which means you plant it once and you will never run out. Its primary mechanism involves rosmarinic acid again, which we have already seen in rosemary. But lemon balm pairs this with compounds that appear to modestly inhibit the enzyme that breaks down GABA in the brain. More GABA, less excitatory noise, less stress signaling, less downstream inflammation. The pharmacology is gentle, but it is real. Evidence from small controlled trials suggests lemon balm reduces anxiety and improves sleep quality in people with mild anxiety disorders. Sleep quality is not a soft endpoint. Poor sleep is one of the fastest ways to elevate inflammatory markers across every system in the body. I keep a pot of lemon balm just inside the back door. In the evening, I cut about 10 fresh leaves, crush them between my palms, and steep them for 5 minutes in hot water. The smell that lifts from the cup is unmistakably lemon. Clean, light, not sharp. I combine it with lavender 2 or 3 times a week before bed. That combination, anecdotally and in preliminary data, stacks the calming effects. Oregano has a compound called carvacrol that earns it a serious place on this list. Carvacrol has been shown in laboratory studies to suppress the production of specific inflammatory cytokines, the same messaging proteins that Tulsi addresses, but through a different mechanism. It also shows strong antimicrobial activity. The significance: chronic low-grade infections are now recognized as a significant driver of systemic inflammation. Keeping microbial load down is an anti-inflammatory strategy. A tablespoon of fresh oregano added to food is not a therapeutic dose. The concentrated oil is a different matter entirely, and oregano oil should be used cautiously and sparingly, not as a daily supplement without knowledge of its interactions. As a culinary herb, however, regular use is both safe and evidence-supported. Culinary use first: strip fresh leaves from 3 stems and add to a slow-cooked tomato base. Cooking does not destroy carvacrol, it concentrates it. For a simple oregano vinegar, which I use as a daily drizzle, I pack a clean glass jar with fresh oregano, fill it with raw apple cider vinegar, seal it, and leave it for 3 weeks. The carvacrol infuses into the acid medium efficiently. Thyme's active compound, thymol, is in the same chemical family as carvacrol from oregano. The two plants share a similar anti-inflammatory logic, but thyme adds something worth noting. Evidence suggests thymol specifically supports the respiratory epithelium, the lining of your airways, and reduces inflammatory activity in the bronchial tubes. For anyone dealing with chronic respiratory inflammation, something that damp winters tend to aggravate in many climates, thyme is worth taking seriously. Thyme is also one of the most concentrated food sources of antioxidants, gram for gram, of any herb commonly grown in temperate gardens. Not a folk claim, a documented nutritional analysis finding. Thyme steam inhalation is the oldest application and still one of the most direct. Add 4 fresh sprigs to a bowl of just boiled water and breathe over it, covered with a cloth for 5 minutes. Thyme honey is the kitchen protocol I return to most. Pack a jar with fresh thyme, stems and all, pour raw local honey over it until the herbs are fully submerged, seal, and wait 4 weeks. The thymol infuses into the honey. Half a teaspoon in hot water becomes a gentle daily respiratory tonic. Chamomile is a gentle herb with a deceptively complex chemistry. Its primary anti-inflammatory compound is apigenin, a flavonoid that binds to the same GABA receptors as lavender's linalool, but also shows activity that suppresses NF-κB and reduces COX-2 expression, the same pathway turmeric works on, the same one many pharmaceutical anti-inflammatories target. Chamomile reaches it more softly, through a different compound class, via a different receptor interaction. Evidence from controlled studies suggests chamomile extract reduces symptoms of generalized anxiety disorder, comparably to some pharmaceutical options in mild to moderate presentations. The gut calming effects are also well documented, and the gut inflammation connection is one of the most active research frontiers in modern medicine. It self-seeds freely. Plant it once, let it set seed at the end of the season, and you will have chamomile indefinitely. Fresh chamomile tea is different from the bagged product. I pick flowers at full open, when the petals have just begun to reflex back. That is peak apigenin content. I steep for no more than 7 minutes. Over-steeping chamomile turns it bitter and does not improve the medicinal yield. Cover the cup while steeping. Volatile oils evaporate, and they carry active compounds. Peppermint is one of those plants where the mechanism is almost elegantly simple. Menthol, the compound responsible for the cooling sensation, activates specific cold receptors in tissue, which temporarily reduces pain signaling through that same channel. But menthol also shows anti-inflammatory activity through inhibition of COX2 expression in laboratory models, and a controlled clinical trial published in Cephalalgia found that topical peppermint oil applied to the forehead and temples reduced tension headache intensity comparably to acetaminophen. That is a specific documented clinical finding, not a general wellness claim. Like lemon balm, peppermint needs to be contained, planted in a sunken pot or a raised bed with barriers. It will take over. For headache, bruise 6 to 8 fresh leaves, steep in a small bowl of just boiled water, let cool to warm, then apply the compress to the forehead with a cloth. For digestion, a simple fresh leaf infusion in water for 5 minutes. No boiling, drunk after meals. Evidence supports peppermint's effect on gut-smooth muscle tension, which is why it has been clinically investigated for irritable bowel presentations. Feverfew is the counterintuitive one on this list. Most people do not grow it. Many do not know it exists. Its primary compound, parthenolide, works through a mechanism that research has linked specifically to migraine prevention. Parthenolide appears to inhibit platelet aggregation and reduce serotonin release from blood cells, 2 factors involved in the vascular changes that precede a migraine event. A Cochrane systematic review examined the available trial data on Feverfew for migraine prevention. Results across trials were mixed. The evidence does not conclusively establish efficacy, but some individual trials did show modest reductions in migraine frequency. That nuance matters. It is not a proven treatment, but it is a studied one. The catch: Feverfew is a preventative, not a treatment during an attack. You take it consistently before the headache, not in response to one. It self-seeds freely. Once established, it is moderately invasive and extremely hardy, the kind of plant that asks nothing of you. 2 to 3 fresh Feverfew leaves daily is the dose used in most clinical studies. I eat them directly, placed between 2 slices of bread to mask the bitter flavor. This is not a pleasant herb to taste. A word of caution: Feverfew should be avoided during pregnancy, and it should not be combined with blood-thinning medications without medical guidance. It is a mild anticoagulant. This is the same category of awareness you would apply to aspirin. Echinacea has been studied more extensively than almost any herb on this list, and the data is more nuanced than popular opinion suggests. Its primary activity is immunomodulatory rather than directly anti-inflammatory. It appears to prime the innate immune response before a threat arrives. Specific alkylamides in Echinacea interact with cannabinoid receptors in immune cells, which influences how those cells produce inflammatory signals. It is calibrating the system, not dampening it. Evidence is strongest for reducing the duration of upper respiratory infections and for prophylactic use during high-risk periods. The studies on treating an established infection are more mixed. This distinction matters. Use it before and during exposure, not as a cure after the fact. Echinacea is a perennial. Plant it once in a well-drained sunny spot, and it will return every year for decades with almost no effort. I make a root tincture in autumn, when the plant's energy has receded from the flower into the root. Chop the fresh root small, fill a clean glass jar, cover with vodka or food-grade glycerin, seal, and leave for 4 to 6 weeks. 3 to 4 dropperfuls in water during cold and flu season, typically the colder months of the year, is the standard protocol. Avoid taking it continuously through summer. The evidence for long-term uninterrupted use is not established. Calendula's primary application is topical. That distinction matters because it changes how you grow and process it. Its active compounds, oleanolic acid, calendulicides, and a range of flavonoids show meaningful wound healing and local anti-inflammatory activity in the skin. Clinical evidence indicates that calendula preparations reduce healing time in radiation-induced skin damage and post-surgical tissue inflammation. These are not soft wellness claims, they come from formal clinical settings. The mechanism involves direct action on local inflammatory cells in the dermis and modulation of collagen production. For anyone managing chronic skin inflammation, eczema, rosacea, minor burns, this is worth understanding. Calendula is one of the most productive plants you can grow. It flowers continuously from early summer through the first hard frost. Deadhead it regularly, and it will not stop producing. Calendula-infused oil is the base of almost everything I make for skin. Pack dried calendula petals, fully dried, not fresh, or moisture will spoil the oil, into a clean jar. Cover with a good olive oil. Seal and place on a sunny windowsill for 4 weeks. Strain through muslin. The resulting oil is a warm amber color and carries the full profile of lipid-soluble compounds. I use it directly on dry skin or melt it with a little beeswax to make a simple salve. Elderberry has been studied in more rigorous trials than most entries on this list, and the data for immune support specifically is reasonably robust. Anthocyanins, the dark pigments in elderberries, show potent antioxidant activity. More specifically, studies indicate elderberry preparations reduce the duration and severity of influenza symptoms when taken at the onset of infection. The proposed mechanism involves the anthocyanins directly interfering with viral surface protein binding to host cells. It is preliminary mechanistic data, but the clinical outcomes in multiple small trials are consistent. A critical safety note: raw elderberries contain sambunagrin, a cyanogenic glycoside that causes nausea and vomiting. All elderberry preparations must be cooked. Raw berries are not medicine. They are a problem. The elder grows vigorously across temperate climates worldwide. It is not a demanding plant. It wants a bit of sun, reasonable moisture, and space to expand. Elderberry syrup. Strip berries from stems. Stems contain more of the cyanogenic compounds and do not belong in the pot. Add 2 cups of berries to 3 cups of water with a cinnamon stick and 3 cloves. Simmer, not boil, for 45 minutes until reduced by roughly half. Cool, strain, then stir in a half cup of raw honey. Do not add honey while hot. Heat destroys its antimicrobial compounds. Store in the refrigerator. Use within 8 weeks. 1 tablespoon daily during autumn and winter is the protocol I follow. I save nettle for last deliberately because this is the plant that makes people argue. Stinging nettle contains a full spectrum of anti-inflammatory compounds: quercetin, camphorol, caffeic acid, and beta-sitosterol among them. It operates on histamine release, CWEX inhibition, and TNF-alpha suppression simultaneously. TNF-alpha is one of the primary drivers of rheumatic inflammation. The data is not definitive, but preliminary clinical evidence suggests nettle preparations produce meaningful symptom reduction in osteoarthritis and seasonal allergy presentations. Here is the counterintuitive finding that tends to stop people. Applying fresh stinging nettle leaf directly to arthritic joints, a practice called urtication, has been documented in small trials to reduce pain and disability scores, comparably to NSAID therapy over a short period. The mechanism likely involves the formic acid and histamine in the trichomes, triggering a counter-irritant response that modulates local inflammatory signals. Nettle grows wild across most of the temperate world. Damp, nitrogen-rich soil. You do not need to plant it. You need to find a patch and manage it. Wear gloves until it is cooked or dried. The sting is real. Blanching kills the sting immediately. Bring a pot of water to the boil. Add fresh nettle tops, 30 seconds. Remove with tongs, drain. The resulting greens are edible, nutritionally dense, and contain the same phenolic compounds, heat stable, as the fresh plant. I treat blanched nettles exactly as I would spinach, into egg dishes, into soups, stirred through grain bowls. A generous portion 3 times a week is the protocol I use through spring and early summer when young growth is most abundant. For the infusion, 1 large handful of dried nettle leaf in a liter of cold water, left overnight. The cold extraction preserves more of the mineral content, nettle, is one of the most mineral-dense plants you can consume. Strain and drink throughout the following day. These 15 plants are not a prescription. Nothing shown here replaces a conversation with your own doctor. That matters, and it needs to be said clearly. What they are is a layer, a consistent, low-cost, cumulative layer of support that generations before us understood instinctively and that clinical researchers are now mapping in molecular detail. Every one of these plants is growing somewhere within reach right now. The nettles in a hedgerow, the chamomile in a forgotten corner, the rosemary in a pot by a south-facing wall. None of it requires a pharmacy. If this was useful, if you are going to start even one of these plants this season, subscribe. Next week, building a medicinal herb garden from scratch on a small plot, starting with soil preparation. Before you go, which of these 15 surprised you most? Not which one you already knew, which one changed something in how you think about what you grow.